I'm going to make a bold statement. At least a statement that's bold in response to the American narrative about terror. America does not have a Muslim terror problem. We are not in the midst of a Muslim Islamist terror crisis. Islamist terror attacks in America are so infrequent, I would dare to call them incidental to the overall statistical data regarding the frequency and identity of American terrorists. If anything, we have a gun activist terrorism problem. The media. I was watching the simple arithmetic that the media has. I think 50% of it is the loudest contingent in terms of the public. When it comes to talking about terror, there were like within 3 minutes, there was an announcement of a terror attack downtown that mirrored some of the terror attacks in Europe that some of the skeptics call truck of peace attacks. But compared to parts of Africa, America does not have a Muslim terror epidemic. If you check global statistics, the majority of terror attacks perpetrated by Muslims are perpetrated against other Muslims. In the United States in particular, and it'd be funny if it wasn't so sad, within less than 24 hours of the New York terror attack, that was immediately the second the words Allah Akbar were relayed by on-the-ground eyewitnesses to the press. All the politicians and all the media outlets immediately, terror, terror, terror. Less than 24 hours later, there was another fucking mass shooting in a Walmart. Why do I use the term gun rights advocates when describing these terrorists? Why do I use the word terrorist? Because the immediate counterpoint is, well, these Muslim attackers are political, and the white lone wolf terrorist is a sociopath who occurs in a vacuum. There's no priming, there's no radicalization that leads a white man to shoot up a Walmart. There's no radicalization apparatus that leads a white man in Las Vegas to shoot out of a 32nd floor window, hit about 500 people, deliberately targeting civilians. Apparently there's no radicalization that leads to the 58 people that were killed in Las Vegas. All the NRA propaganda, all the right-wing media propaganda about the threats that face the white man, the impending, encroaching threats to the West. Most terror attacks, when you do your homework, have in common that most of the quote-unquote Muslim terrorists are lone wolves as well. If we're going to use that cop-out, it applies to the Muslim attackers as well. spoiler alert, most of the Muslim attackers in the West are also lone, disturbed people who have consumed wholesale and uncritically ISIS propaganda the same way that a lot of these white right-wing gun nuts have absorbed InfoWars and a million other prepper culture, paranoid, black helicopter, alt media sources. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a place for alternative media, like Democracy Now! Or The Real News. There are YouTubers who can make you more knowledgeable on politics, but not all alternative media is based on truth. A lot of alternative media is premised upon, you pay me and I will tell you that everyone you already hate is responsible for everything that you fear. Everything that's wrong in your life is the product of fill in the blank. Sexual degenerates, race mixers, Muslim rapists. It's confirmation bias in the most benign terms, but like the extent to which the online alternative media sphere has, and I guess talk radio back in the day, because this is not, I got a lot of gray hair, and I think that that is a good record of how long I've been watching reactionary politics and watching the means through which paranoid reactionary talking points trigger terrorist nutjobs. So when I was a young man, it was talk radio. It was Rush Limbaugh that stoked people like Timothy McVeigh into action. And now, and a little bit after that, it was cable news and people like Glenn Beck that fed you enemies and fed you a hysterical attachment to guns and fed you a narrative of inevitable and impending revolution. And then cable news begot the current reactionary news feed, reactionary online alternative media sphere, which is probably the first really big outlet online, particularly on YouTube, was fucking Alex Jones. And the right, the Overton window moved so quickly towards the right in this fucking country that Alex Jones is a moderate now. In less than 2 years, the right wing has not left Alex Jones behind, but Alex Jones has a hard time keeping up with what's right wing today. What's today's fantasy? Who's today's enemies? And just like Rebel Media, he's having a hard time following the alt-right into blatant anti-Semitism. He does what Sargon of Akkad does, where he presents Jewish conspiracy theories involving Jewish malefactors in benign terms. So instead of saying the Jews, he'll say Rothschilds. Just like Beck back in the day, instead of saying Jews, would say George Soros or Shel Silverstein. And there's always a Jewish conspiracy to the right. back in the day, Limbaugh would cite people, what they would call Reubenites, within the Clinton administration. Not that I support Robert Rubin or his toxic, grotesque political philosophies, economic philosophies. I'm trying to. I mean, even the Ron Paul libertarian movement that everybody sort of thought of as the revolutionary wing of the Tea Party would constantly use Goldman Sachs because, look, the banking institutions in America are not popular, and you can use an anti-Semitic narrative for the general public by just picking a massive company, a massive corporation, or a financial institution that's run by Jewish people, and you can do like a double dog whistle of like, oh, to the anti-Semites, this is because of Jews, and then to other people they go, oh no, it's not because of Jews, it's because Goldman Sachs is greedy. It's a way to feed anti-Semites without having to own that you're feeding anti-Semites. It's more plausible deniability. So I think that my biggest concern is the fact that America is drowning in a sea of bullets by right-wing gun activists. See, I'm trying to avoid using the term gun nuts. I almost used the term gun nuts there. Gun nuts is a cop-out, and it's another way to say the only thing to note about right-wing terror attacks is that the person was a fanatic or a nut job, or it's not untrue that these people are mostly deranged, but it's not a pure outgrowth of mental illness. It is a combination of, I notice you have voices in your head. Let me give you the means by which to defend yourself from the voices, and it just happens to be in the interest, because again, it always comes back to capitalism. Our biggest problem in the country is that right-wing terror attacks are profitable.